Welcome back to JComX, everyone. Today I have a very special episode. Banjo-Kazooie was one of my all-time favorite games growing up. Me and my brothers poured countless hours into this game. With its unique characters, levels, bosses, sense of humor, there's a lot to love about these games. And since Banjo-Tooie just released on Nintendo Switch Online, something I never thought would happen, I thought what better opportunity to get together with my brothers again all these years later and reminisce about the good times we've had. So without further ado, let me introduce the Brothers Banjo, Goku's pre-workout,
Hey, I'm Goku's pre-workout.
and Captain Jabroni.
And I'm Captain Jabroni.
First off, let's just start off with the obvious. What are your general thoughts about the Banjo-Kazooie franchise?
I love this franchise. I've been playing it ever since I was a kid and recently played through again. And I have to say, it stands the test of time. They are harder than I remember, but it was a true blast playing through again.
I love Banjo and Kazooie and Tooie. These are some of my favorite classic games from the Nintendo 64. I feel like I love basically everything about these games. The music is something that I come back to. I look for covers of the songs. I like to replay the originals. I like to force these games on my child at this time. I'm always doing the dorkiest little voice impressions of different characters for no good reason. It's a little bit awkward, but it's something that I'll still do. Got huge replayability for me. It's super nostalgic just playing the game, sitting down, turning it on again. It just takes me back to a comfortable place. It's like a core video game for me, based like to help build my taste for future video games I would play down the road. Yeah, I love everything about Banjo and Kazooie in almost every way.
It's safe to say that we're pretty big fans of the Bear and Bird duo.
Shut the fuck up.
So keeping in mind that we're all fans, I have a few questions because, as Captain Jabroni pointed out, these games are not all sunshine and roses. They're pretty difficult. There's some bullshit in these games, and so we're gonna get into that. The good, the bad, and the banjo.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
These games are filled to the brim with vibrant and colorful characters, some of the best in the genre. So we'll start out with, who is your favorite Banjo-Kazooie character?
My favorite character is the one and only Mumbo Jumbo, making an appearance in both Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. With the revamp in Banjo-Tooie, he's classic. He's the best part of every level is finding out what Mumbo will do to make your character cool or what superpower he'll give them. Mumbo Jumbo rocks.
Let's see if you can guess based on my impression.
Ika-bokum, oogly-boo, oogly-boo.
It's gonna be Mumbo. Like Captain Jabroni said, he has mixed powers from the first game where he can actually transform you into different creatures to the second game where you actually get to play as him, which was like the coolest thing, and going around and casting your spells with a super interesting song that he sings. Yeah, I love Mumbo too.
It is hard to beat Mumbo, he's awesome. But for my money's worth, I'm gonna have to go with the man himself, Jam Jars. One of the most annoying voices, it's classic. It's hard to beat Bottles because Bottles helps you out throughout the entire game, and he's also iconic with his goofy Hawaiian shirt and his voice that I will not be attempting to do. But I prefer his older, meaner brother. The banter that Jam Jars and Kazooie have back and forth cracks me up every time. He gives you a ton of new moves, and overall, I just like the cut of his jib.
I'm not the biggest fan of Jam Jars. He replaces Bottles because Bottles dies due to Grunty, spoiler alert, if you didn't already know. But with his douchey sunglasses and the annoying cadence in his voice and the way he talks, and he's kind of like ordering you around. And when I first played Banjo-Tooie, I wasn't super good at the game, so most of my interactions with him were him popping his head out of his little hole just to tell me, no, you gotta walk away and you don't have enough notes for this move yet. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Jam Jars, who stole the place of Bottles. I prefer Bottles of the two moles.
Hey, Punk, why don't you take that back? No, just kidding. That was terrible. Yeah. Well, since we've talked about the main characters, who's your favorite non-main character? Because there's a lot of characters in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie.
Thanks to JComX growing up, he had a way of building like terror and suspense around things that I wouldn't normally be scared of. So my favorite character is the Stomping Foot from Pterodactyl Land, because JComX would always ask, where's that foot even coming from? How big does that dinosaur have to be for that foot to be coming out of nowhere? And why does it keep stomping in the same place? And just every time I come back to the game, I rethink of those same silly questions questions and brings back the wonder in my mind of just like, where is this foot coming from? Why is it so huge and freaky and bigger? It had to have to be bigger than any dinosaur in this world. And it's just random, and it's a foot that just keeps stomping in the same area. It's quiet and creepy, and there's no music. It's just that just piece of the world is a vibe, and yeah, that stomping foot is weird and probably one of my favorite characters in the franchise.
My favorite character is Grabba from Gobi's Valley. The hand that comes out. Where is that hand coming from? No, just kidding. Take that last part out. Every time I encounter it, I take the time to kill it. But of all the side characters, and I know there's a lot of great ones, I'd have to say Grabba.
I'm nothing if not a working class man. Everyone knows that about me. And so, of all of these characters, of which, like Captain Jabroni said, there are many, the best non-main character has got to be the grunt enemies from Grunty Industries. Because just look at these guys. They're these chunky, they're working class people. Yeah, they're awesome. Like, sure, they come and attack you, but they're hilarious. There's probably nothing more funny to me in this entire game than sitting on a ledge and having one of these guys come at you as the washing machine, and you just huck the underwear at their face, and then they over-dramatically... I laugh every single time I kill one of these guys. They crack me up every time, and I love them. They are definitely, in my opinion, the objectively best non-main character of the entire series. In addition to the colorful characters, one of the things that's often remembered and stands out in these games is the vast and charming worlds, each one different from the next. So my question to you is, what's your favorite world?
My favorite world is Pterodactyl Land or Pterodactyl Land, whichever it is, because you get to play as a freaking dinosaur. Are you kidding me? Growing up watching my brothers play, it always was the apple of my eye. But when I finally got to play it myself, I think the gameplay overall and the colors in the world and just being able to interact with dinosaurs is awesome. It's also extremely difficult playing through again, but I love Pterodactyl Land.
Who doesn't love dinosaurs?
I actually really like Pterodactyl Land too. It was hard to get there. No matter how old I get, I always take at least 30 minutes each playthrough when I turn into the big T-Rex to just roar at nothing, to roar at the enemies so they die, jump through the bubble goop and not get hurt. I love that part of that world specifically. Just wanted to say that. But my own personal favorite world is Witchy World. There's something about it being a place that's like made for kids, but it's also like all the rides and stuff are designed to kill you. Everybody there is like a henchman that wants to end your life and just smash you with a hammer or climb up to the top of a diving board up in the middle of space, which it's a whole like experience climbing that thing, and the music cuts out and it just turns into the sound of like this cold breezy wind, and you get up to the stars at the very top and look down at the water below, and then I inevitably miss every time I jump off and fall to my doom. But everything about that world is creepy, it's circusy, and I love exploring every corner of it. The music is so iconic for that place. I really, really love Witchy World.
I can't stand Witchy World. It might just be the music, but I've never been a big fan. The minigames are tough. The boss, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, is a little bit harder than it should be for that level, but personally never been a big fan of Witchy World.
Both Pterodactyl Land and Witchy World, both of them have things that I love and hate about them. I love Mr. Patch in Witchy World. Sounds like I'm in the minority there. But I love how it's segmented in 4 different sections, and each one feels completely different. And with Pterodactyl Land, it's really vast and amazing, but every Jiggy in that level is like a chore, I feel like. So my favorite level is gonna be no one's favorite level other than mine. I know I'm in the minority here, but Grunty Industry is my absolute favorite level of all of the games. If it was just to Banjo-Kazooie, Rusty Bucket Bay would be the top of the list, which I also know is no one's favorite level of that game. I don't know why. It's something about a bear and a bird, these colorful cartoon characters running around in the most dingy, like, gray levels ever, that for something that just really appeals to me for some reason. Like there's oil everywhere, all the enemies are just like canisters of toxic gas and shit. I love it. But with Grunty Industry specifically, the level is extremely convoluted and difficult. And I know I just said in Pterodactyl Land every Jiggy is like a chore to get. Times that by like 5 and then you have Grunty Industry. You cannot get a simple Jiggy in Grunty Industries. But that's exactly why I like it. The whole world feels like a maze. It feels like the first level when you get into Banjo-Tooie that the world really makes you dig in. Like, it's like the game is saying, here's the level, you've got all of the tools and the moves, let's put that all to the test. For example, when you enter the world for the first time, the main section of the game is actually completely closed off. You have to first press a switch to open the train station, and then you have to go out of the level into a different world, call the train to wherever you need it to be, and then you can finally enter the world through the train station, and then open the front gates. It's extremely convoluted and ridiculous, but I love it. I get lost while I'm exploring the world. I love the transformation in that world, the washing machine, shooting underwear all over the place. It's fantastic. I love Grunty Industries. With that being said, some would argue we're already there, but let's move right along into the worst worlds in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie.
I don't think it's controversial to say Grunty's Industries is probably one of the worst worlds between the two games. It has so much backtracking in it from just by the time you get to that world, you have so many eggs, you've got so many moves you've learned, and you still can't get like what feels like half the Jiggies. Like you struggle just to get 4, and the rest of them you either don't have the right moves yet, or they're just like pulling teeth to get through every part of that world. It's absolutely brutal. It's a difficult world. It's very much, I like the world in the art style that it has, and it's very themed for what it is, and it's kind of cool in that way, but just on the difficulty level, it's such a struggle to get through that world at 100% and have to come back to it multiple times, and oh man, that world's giving me so much trouble. For Banjo-Kazooie, my least favorite world is... I actually love every world in Banjo-Kazooie, but if I had to pick one I didn't like, it would be Gobi's Valley. For some reason, even as a seasoned player that goes back to that game all the time, that world can still give me some trouble. It's a little bit more difficult because when you die in Banjo-Kazooie, you don't keep all your notes, you have to re-get them all, and I still die at least once or twice when going through Gobi's Valley, so it's difficult because of that. It's also not the easiest to find all of the notes. I still don't know what's behind the rock door that the camel is next to up on a ledge. To this day, I don't really know what's behind that, but yeah, Gobi's Valley for me in Banjo-Kazooie.
This is a tough question for me. I will say there are some great worlds in Banjo-Kazooie, but my least favorite worlds, while Gobi's Valley comes in close, along with Clanker's Cavern, Rusty Bucket Bay has to be one of the worst worlds to try to get all the notes and Jiggies on in one go. But that being said, the worst world is Mad Monster Mansion. It's designed great, it's horrible trying to play as a pumpkin, and some of those Jiggies I really struggled with, which I'm sure we'll get to, but I spent more time in Mad Monster Mansion than any of the other worlds, and if I never have to play that world again, it'll be too soon.
I just gotta say, L's all around. L's all around. Dude, all of these levels are awesome. Mad Monster Mansion is a Halloween level. I love it. The vibes are immaculate. Rusty Bucket Bay, fantastic level. The engine room, bullshit. We need some difficulty in here. This game has been too easy. Slipping, sliding off of that, okay, it is bullshit. And to get to the notes is a lot. It's one slip up and your notes are completely gone. It's true. But regardless, those are fantastic levels. Gobi's Valley, wow, massive L. Gobi's Valley is awesome. Like, it's an Egyptian-themed level. How are you gonna do some of my favorite characters? King Sandy Butt, Grabba, what the hell? These are great characters. The actual worst, objectively worst world in any of these games, Cloud Cuckoo Land. Not only does it have Cuck in the name, which that's just immediately, we're out of here, but Cloud Cuckoo Land sucks. The theme is supposed to be like, oh man, it's so zany and wacky. It's really not. Like, I feel like some of these other levels are more zany and more wacky than Cloud Cuckoo Land. It's just, like, if they really wanted to lean into that Wonderland, oh man, it's goofy, they just really didn't. It's like, there is some fun stuff. I like Minji Django, the boss, the fake Mumbo, like, that's a fun reveal. Who doesn't like Mr. Fit? everyone's favorite character. Aside from those gems, I don't know, it just feels like a disconnected thing. It feels like the developers were like, we have all of these extra mini games that we want to do, but we don't have a level for them. I don't know, let's make the final level of the game, the thing that you're supposed to be building up to that whole time, into just, we'll put them in a bunch of places and say, oh man, look at, isn't that wacky? Isn't that kooky? That's dumb. And then there's just a giant mountain in the middle. Not a fan. It is cool that you can see the map from above, like you can see the world of ILO hags down there, but overall, I just think Cloud Cuckoo Land is just so lame for a final level. And it's not even that difficult. It's kind of hard to find. Like, it takes time, but I don't know. I'm out of it. I'm out on Cloud Cuckoo Land.
I totally forgot about Rusty Bucket Bay. I changed my answer. My least favorite world in Banjo-Kazooie is Rusty Bucket Bay. More than Click Clock Wood, which is very hard, and Gobi's Valley, which has like a decent challenge. I completely forgot about Rusty Bucket Bay. My last playthrough on that game, you just struggle to find all the last notes. Specifically, there's like these notes that are, you have to break through one of these little circle windows on the side of the boat, but you just would not know that you need to break through these windows to get in there. And I couldn't find the last, I don't know, what is it, 5, 10 jiggies, 8 jiggies, something. And I was like, I've gone everywhere, gone back under the water, checked all the way under the boat, like 3 different ways, almost died every time, backtracking through everything, checking every crack in the wall. You do everything, and they just, where would they be? They end up being in some random window that you have to jump and hit with your beak. And it's just like such a challenging level for that. Plus there is the engine room that gets me every time as well. Just trying to jump, time the fans to get through those. My hands get so sweaty and trying to get, oh my gosh, Rusty Bucket Bay is way worse than Gobi's Valley. I totally forgot about this place. And for the Cloud Cuckoo hater, I've got some rapid fire questions for you to answer off the dome, just to solidify what's wrong with this world. You really don't like the boss of Cloud Cuckoo Land, the robot evil Mumbo?
That's literally the thing I said was one of the only good things about the level.
What about the Jello?
Oh yeah, the Jello, what an awesome thing. The Jello, what a wacky concept. Who would have thought Jello in the sky? Oh, you got me there.
What do you think of Canary Mary? Isn't that like a super iconic, memorable part of the world? Who can forget those races?
Canary Mary, hey, no hate to Canary Mary. She's great, I guess. Those races can eat a fucking dick. Have I made my point?
No, that world's hard as shit.
Let's stick with the negativity for now. We all know Banjo and Kazooie can be known for its bosses. They're creative and unique, but not all of them are winners, let's be real. So with that said, what is your least favorite boss fight of the whole series?
Well, for me, in Banjo-Tooie, Lord Wu Fak Fak has to be my pick. Super difficult. I'm not in love with the swimming game feature, so Lord Wu Fak Fak has always been super difficult for me. I think it took me like 6 times to beat it the first time I played through. But in Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Furnace Fun is complete bullshit, I have to say. I don't know if it's even possible to beat that your first time through. Luckily on the Nintendo Switch, there's the suspend points, which made it a little bit easier, but we won't talk about that. Grunty's Furnace Fun is extremely difficult. I think the worst part is when it has those tiles where it asks you questions about Grunty, and the only way to figure those out is to go through the game talking to her sister, who's generated at random points throughout the map. It's complete bullshit. And when I finally beat it, it just about took all my wherewithal and fun out of the game. So for me, it's Grunty's Furnace Fun.
I absolutely abused the suspend points on those quizzes at the end of the games. Those were so hard when I was growing up. Like Jabroni said, where when we were little, I would have to have my older brother JComX in the room with me just to get through those quizzes. They were absolutely brutal. It's a collaborative effort to get through them. And luckily with modern technology, the suspend points make that a little bit easier. But my least favorite boss is actually going to be Weldar. Just kind of going in with the whole Grunty's Industries hate. Weldar always gives me trouble. Just avoiding the electricity on the ground, shooting the grenades in his mouth, trying to avoid him slamming down on me after jumping in the air. He's just unnecessarily difficult after an unnecessarily difficult level. I really don't like battling Weldar.
Sounds like I'm the only true Banjo fan around here. The only one who doesn't use suspend features and knows the answers. The quizzes are not my favorite, but they're fun if like you're playing against someone else who plays Banjo-Kazooie just like as a competitive thing. The first thought that came to my mind when it came to bad bosses was Nipper from Treasure Trove Cove, just because it's so easy, like it's barely a boss. But I feel like Nipper has a lot of character. Like, he's a very memorable part of Treasure Trove Cove, so I don't think he's the worst boss. I think the actual worst boss is still in Banjo-Kazooie, because the bosses, let's be real, most of the bosses in Banjo-Kazooie are barely bosses. The Snippers from Clanker's Cavern, who remembers those guys? Did we remember the mutant Snippers? How many, if I didn't put the footage up right now, you wouldn't remember who these guys are. They're barely a boss. Do we count that as a boss? No. They barely make the mark. It's just because if there is a boss in this level, it's probably these guys. Come on. The frogs made more of an impression in Bubble Gloop Swamp. And they're harder. The Snipper, mutant Snipper, whatever's, nah, not it for me, fam. With all this negativity going around, let's talk about some more of the colorful characters in this game. We know who the worst bosses are, but who's the best boss?
If you couldn't tell, that was the Cole guy. What the fuck is his name? My favorite boss is Old King Cole. I think a big part of that is just because when I was, he's my youngest memories playing this game. He's probably as far as I could get before things got really challenging in Witchy World. Playing through it now, the whole game's basically doable. Cloud Cuckoo Land's very hard. Grunty's Industry is still very hard, but I could always make it when I was young to King Cole, and I always felt accomplishment in being able to beat a boss and like handily take care of him. So I like Old King Cole for that reason. He's my favorite boss. It mostly just kind of like nostalgia baked, and remembering going back through and beating him over and over again just felt so good.
My favorite bosses are from Banjo-Tooie, and it's Chili Billy and Chili Willy. I mean, I think mostly for the aesthetics of them. I think the story behind it is hilarious. The fact that they just want pizza and give the Jiggy tea afterwards. The gameplay itself when you're playing against them is fun, especially after the Hellfire Peaks level. It's a fun boss and doesn't leave you pissed off like a lot of the other bosses. Mr. Patch.
Both good choices. Chili Billy, Chili Willy, love them. I also like that they're some of the few bosses that you actually have to fight early on in the level, because otherwise they won't stop fucking shooting their dumb like ice and fire breath down at you through the whole thing. So it makes them an integral part of the level, which I think is awesome. And Old King Cole is, that boss fight is like nothing. It's like Nipper. Like you just beat him immediately. But character-wise, I love it. I love that he is always around controlling Chuffy. The train that you ride on in Banjo-Tooie, he's always like, where do you want to go? My favorite boss is Weldar. Grunty Industries is my favorite level, and Weldar is a big part of that. I love Weldar. I think he's kind of scary when he first like shows up, before he starts being kind of a goof and he's like, where are my glasses? Are you not a real bear? Like, that's kind of goofy, but I think the boss fight is fun. It's hard, but it's fun. I like all of the different phases. It gives you a challenge. It's the perfect boss fight to culminate the difficulty of Grunty Industries. And also, it's just like, who would have thought, like, to make a welding torch a boss? That's such a creative, like, design for a boss, in my opinion. And then I like that you can still talk to the head after you beat it. Like, it's just lying there on the ground, and he just says funny stuff. He's like, you just had to go and take it too far, didn't you? It's great, and it's difficult to get to him. I love Weldar. Definitely my favorite of all of the bosses. So now that we've got a little bit of positivity, let's go back to the negative shit. Worst Jiggies. Some of these Jiggies are a pain in the ass, and we all know it. So what is your personal least favorite Jiggy of the entire game to get?
The worst Jiggy to get is in Banjo-Kazooie. It's in Rusty Bucket Bay, in the propeller, at the front of the ship. The whole premise of it is ridiculous, and if you don't do it at the beginning of the level, you're bound to lose all of your notes. What you have to do is go inside of the ship, hit a switch after running through some propellers that are bound to knock you down a few times. Hopefully you're playing through on the switch and you can use those suspend points. But you hit it, it has a timer that turns off the propeller at the front of the ship. You have to run through a bunch of propellers, run out the ship and somehow get to the Jiggy, and hopefully you do it in time and swim out of the propeller. Otherwise, you die. It's a shit show. And I don't know what the game developers were thinking when they put this into a child's game, but that's definitely the worst one for me.
For my least favorite Jiggy, for Banjo-Kazooie, I'm going to go with the Turtle Choir in Bubble Goop Swamp. It's deceivingly easy. It seems like it's going to be easy, so I don't need to cheat. I don't need the save points. I got this. And like you get through the first thing, you can memorize the order. You get through like level 2, you memorize the order. It's, you know, you kind of get the hang of it. But for some reason, like that third, whichever one it is to get the Jiggy, like the third one or whatever, you're like, I mean, I think I remember. You start going through, you get it wrong, but you're like, okay, then it wasn't that, it was this. You go through, you get it wrong again, and you're like, wait, but then it had to be and then you start losing all your honeycombs because you're like, oh my god, is it this hard? Do I need to, I'm not going to record, do I need to write this down? Is it, no, it's like the third world. I don't need to use help. I got this, or fourth world or whatever. It's just, it deceives you into thinking it's easy enough that you wouldn't need any external help of any kind, but it trips me up a little bit. So that's a very frustrating Jiggy for me.
I think probably for me the worst Jiggy is that I hate is in Bubble Gloop Swamp as well. The turtle one is annoying, but the one where you have to press the switch and you have 10 seconds to get across that tiny little strip of land is so stupid. Like, it gives you so little time, so you're like, oh fuck, like I'm gonna, and if you go too slow, oh my god, I hate that one, because the punishment is so frustrating. Like, it's, if you fall off, which I do every single time, I'm a seasoned banjo player, I play these games, I played them a million times, and I always fall off, and more than once usually. And then you have to trek all the way back up, and you have to put on those stupid like mud boots and like go through that dumb thing again every time, and just to get another chance to fall off. I hate that Jiggy.
Yeah, it's funny how that Jiggy, I struggled with that one my last playthrough as well, trying to get across that narrow little strip. I think I died right there the first time I was playing through and lost all my notes. Massive flaw in the game design, which we'll get to, but the camera angle also doesn't help.
And as for the best Jiggy in the game, in my opinion, I think the Jiggy at the very top of the snowman of Freezeezy Peak is, I love that Jiggy because it's a trek. It's like, it's such a reward for the challenge of like getting up to the top of that level. First of all, that level is great because it's Christmas. We all love those fucking snowmen that, you know, whack you right out of the sky. Everyone loves those guys. It's everyone's favorite enemy. But aside from those pleasant little fellows, the vibes of that level are just fantastic. So to be able to climb all the way up and like, you know, it starts getting really scary when you get up because you're so high, and then you get onto the top of the hat. I don't know, it's just awesome. I love that Jiggy. It's like, it's always a fun one. It's one of the ones that I look forward to the most whenever I enter that world, is like, oh, I get to go to the top of the snowman and get the Jiggy there.
The best one to get is in Bubble Goop Swamp in the alligator's nose, when you play against the red alligator and try to get the yellow things and red things, whatever you call those. I always found that to be really fun. It's also fun once you get the shoes and go back to it and play through that time.
My favorite Jiggy is in Freezeezy Peak, when you have to smash the little crocodile heads as the twinklies are going from their box into the Christmas tree to light it up, because it's not all that difficult to complete the challenge. There's no real punishment for it, but it's very Christmassy. Climbing inside and going into another world in the Christmas tree, climbing up the Christmas tree, getting the Jiggy at the top. It's a very festive moment and feeling in, yeah, one of my favorite Jiggies in that game.
My most frustrating moment in the game came when I was playing in Mad Monster Mansion. I had gotten 8 Jiggies, I believe 8 Jiggies, and there's 2 more Jiggies that you have to be the pumpkin to get, and they're in like the pipes and the gutters in order to get them. It took me way too long. I spent over an hour and a half on that level trying to figure out everything. Ultimately, what you have to do is climb, spoiler alert, you have to climb up on the ledge of a hedge to get onto the roof. Who would have thought of that? I don't know why the game developers created that part, but when I finally figured that out, I was so pissed off. that had to be my most frustrating moment, and the payoff doesn't even feel worth it at that point. That was definitely my most frustrating moment.
Most frustrating moment in Banjo-Kazooie for me kind of ties into Captain Jabroni's worst Jiggy, which is in Rusty Bucket Bay, when you have to time those propellers and get back to the Jiggy that's behind one of them. Because I've struggled through every world at some point growing up. Just my last playthrough, I think that was one of the few worlds that as I was trying to do, everything 100%, and I'm older, I'm competent, these levels shouldn't give me trouble. That Jiggy is very frustrating, not remembering where the last notes are because you have to crack through a window. So that, my most frustrating moment of Banjo-Kazooie was just playing through all of Rusty Bucket Bay, but especially that Jiggy behind the propellers.
That is such a frustrating one, and whenever I think back out to the game Banjo-Kazooie, I do think about how the engine room and how frustrating that is, and losing all of your notes. But I also thought about like how it's also extremely frustrating to just have notes be missing in a world, and you have like almost every note, and you're just having to hunt down where are these notes. I would take any of those moments over the frustration of in Pterodactyl Land having to constantly switch back and forth to be Mumbo and turn Humba Wumba's TP big and small every single time you want to be like the small dinosaur or the big dinosaur. Like you're gonna have to go back and forth and be Mumbo, make her wigwam big, and then you're gonna have to go back, become Banjo, come back in, transform. Oh crap, I needed to be the small dinosaur. Or go back and retransform into Banjo-Kazooie, go get Mumbo again, make the wigwam small, and then go back and then, oh my gosh, it just takes so long, and it feels like, I mean, thank God for the warp pad so that you can just quickly go over there, but like, to me, that's one of the most frustrating things of either of the games.
Kazooie?
Banjo and Kazooie have disconnected, now working individually and as a team to tackle their biggest adventure yet, Banjo-Tooie. Just remember, bears still need a bird to fly.
One of the more polarizing aspects, I think, of Banjo-Tooie is the first-person mode that they put in there. It seems like after Rare got a taste of GoldenEye and the success of that game, they were like, oh yeah, let's put that first-person shooter gun mode in every game. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about that mode? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you say, let's toss it out? Do you say more of it? Or what do you guys think?
I think overall I like it. There are so many games that use it in Banjo-Tooie that I don't love, but I grew up playing the multiplayer mode with you guys, and those are some of my best childhood memories. So I absolutely loved the fact that you could play multiplayer with your friends and use it that way. Since I was so young when the game was introduced, I think I just kind of grew up with it, not really having an opinion of it being bad. So overall, I enjoy that it's a game feature, and it does seem to break up the gameplay quite a bit. So I say keep it.
Am I wrong? Was there in the multiplayer mode in Banjo-Tooie, wasn't there a mine item? You could like literally shoot a mine on a door, and it wasn't an egg, it was just a mine?
Well, there is a mine egg, but it's only in the multiplayer mode.
I'm just remembering that now as I'm thinking about the first-person shooter. I really like the integration of first-person shooter in Banjo-Tooie. Like Captain Jabroni said, we played that a lot as brothers growing up, and it was a ton of fun. I think there's a lot of creativity and ways that could continue to be integrated into new Banjo-Kazooie games if they ever come out, where like just the different types of eggs that they have and the creativity they had with them, even in that game, moving that onto a new game with just, I'm thinking of like grenade eggs and the melee move. I just feel like they did a really good job integrating it into Banjo-Tooie. I think they could polish it and add even more to it in a later Banjo-Kazooie game that would be a lot of fun. Of the mini games that I dislike, those aren't one of them. Those are always a joy.
I gotta agree. I think the first-person shooter sections are awesome. I would prefer more of them. I feel like I've heard sentiment online that some people think it's not very fun. They think it's too much and it's always happening. I don't know, I could use more of it because of the same reason. We grew up playing the multiplayer mode and it was always fun, and we would always, you always want to get more points than the other person, and you use the mines or just grenade, like hit the wall next to the person and the recoil hits them and it's bullshit, but I don't know, we had a lot of fun. So multiplayer wise, it's a lot of fun, but even in the game it's fun. I think it can be frustrating, like to just know where to go, especially with the ordnance storage shootout and the Clinkers cavern shootout, which is in Grunty Industries. Those ones, they're like mazes and they put you on a time limit and you're like running around like, where's the last thing? And those are annoying. They can be frustrating because it's hard to, like, a lot of the corridors look the same and have kind of the same colors, so you get lost and then you're just, so it can be frustrating, but I like them and I wish they would have had more like combat focused segments in that style. Well, I think we've talked about just about everything we can possibly talk about. We've talked about characters, worlds, favorite Jiggies. So the last question I'll ask is, which of these two games do you prefer, Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Tooie? And then any last thoughts in addition to that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. My favorite game of the two is Banjo-Tooie. I think they improved on a couple of the key designs. One of the things I really dislike about Banjo-Kazooie, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but the fact that you lose all your notes when you die has to be one of the most frustrating game dynamics I have ever come across in my life. Also, they hadn't figured out the camera in Banjo-Kazooie, and it drove me up a wall, especially because on the Switch, in order to lock your camera in, you have to hold down a button the entire time you're playing through the game. I thought that was really frustrating, so in Banjo-Tooie, they improved those two key features, and I just think Banjo-Tooie has a lot more diverse and bigger worlds and more to offer, so that's my pick, and I'm sticking with it. I love the games, and it's been a true joy playing through them again. Trip down nostalgia lane.
As I've tried to look at the fandom of Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie after I play through the games, it seems that like the majority of fans kind of hail the first Banjo-Kazooie game as like the perfect collectathon. And while I absolutely love Banjo-Kazooie, I love even more Banjo-Tooie, which I'm sure a lot of it is just nostalgia that I can't really measure, but it feels like, what did I lose from Banjo-Kazooie going to Banjo-Tooie? I lost the Mumbo tokens, and I lost having to collect 100 notes in every world because you need to collect a fraction of those in Banjo-Tooie. But I got to keep the good music. All the levels still have iconic soundtracks for me. I got more mini games. I got more bosses. I got more banjo and a busty Native American girl. Like, what's not to love? I had to. No, we'll cut that part.
Whatever, I'm keeping
Jordan. We got more banjo, it felt like, in every way for me. So I like Banjo-Tooie even a little bit more than Banjo-Kazooie. I still absolutely love Banjo-Kazooie. I love them both. I basically would never have to pick one, but if JComX is going to make me pick, I'll pick Banjo-Tooie.
I don't want to be just following the lead here, but I mean, if I go with my heart, Banjo-Tooie is definitely also my more favorite game between the two. Banjo-Kazooie is awesome, and I know, like Goku's pre-workout was saying, a lot of people love Banjo-Kazooie because it's a more concise, short, each of the levels is just self-contained. For the most part, there's very little backtracking, and it's just overall a more concise experience, which a lot of people love. But for me, I really like the vast openness and adventure of Banjo-Tooie. It's much more of an adventure game. Like, you get immersed. There is a lot of backtracking, but that just makes it so that you become more familiar with the worlds. They grow on you more. I love that there are actual bosses and that they have character and they play into the story. I think they doubled down on the humor in the second game. There's a lot of it is just tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit darker than the first game, which, some people don't like, but I think it is nice coming from Banjo-Kazooie to have that. But that being said, both of the games do have their flaws. It is cringe in Banjo-Tooie, the entire character of Humba Wumba. Even though I love the transformations, this character is embarrassing from a modern perspective. Not all of the Jiggies are absolute 10s to get. Not all of the bosses are awesome. But overall, for my money's worth, I love to get stuck in the world of Banjo-Tooie and even Banjo-Kazooie. They're both fantastic games, but I prefer Banjo-Tooie. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode, Goku's Pre-Workout and Captain Jabroni. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk as the Brothers Banjo about these wonderful and nostalgic games. I hope all of you out there enjoyed it as well. If you're Banjo fans like us, I hope it gave you a little dose of nostalgia. Is there anything you would like to leave the audience with?
Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe.
You didn't need to do that.
Bum bo dum bo bum bo bum bo bum ba bum 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 ba bum bum. JComX hit us with the hag cackle to take us out.
I can't.